3D camera. We're going to do a couple simple things. Here's the first thing we're going to create here. Let me just play this. So it's basically working in 3D space. And you've got things out of focus and coming in focus, and we're working on the Z axis. So not only X and Y, but now Z, which makes it really cool. A little confusing at times, but very cool. And then I have the green text called move. I made it last. And so as the camera's moving in, I have move kind of go from a horizontal fashion from right to left across the screen. And it's kind of in focus, it's kind of out of focus, you know, just to kind of show you. And we're doing this with the camera. And then the second video, let me stop this for a second here. The second video is going to be working with what's called a null object. So we're going to create a null object with this little blank square, and we're going to parent the camera to the null object. So rather than move the camera like we did in the first example, we're going to move the null object. And wherever the null object goes, the camera goes. So we're going to create some stroke rings, some circles without color in the middle, and just run a camera through them. But we're not going to, again, we're not going to use the camera. We're going to use the null object. So the null object is parenting the camera. So again, wherever the null object goes, the camera goes. And it just becomes much easier to move the camera using a null object. All right. So that is kind of the second thing we're going to do. And then the third thing we're going to do, we're going to create the idea of a 3D slideshow through 3D space. And we're going to use things in After Effects. But then next week, we're going to do the same thing and really actually create one with photos. And I'll talk about that more, but we're getting into 3D. So, you know, just kind of bear with me here. All right. So let me go again to the first one. The first one, again, is going to be just with text. And we're going to run a camera in 3D space. So if you look, I have two views right now, and this is good in 3D. Typically, it's one view. All right, but in 3D, it's nice to have two views, and one being over the top. And here's the camera, and here are the different graphics. Here is focus. Here's the word move. Here's the word here, and then I think right here is the move rack. Okay, yeah. So again, we're dealing with 3D space now. All right, so I'm going to make a new composition. I'll stay in this project file, and if you want, you can use the same project file for both of these videos. So because you can make more than one composition in a project file. So I'm going to say new composition, HDTV 1080 29.97 1920 by 1080. I'm going to make mine 30 seconds, but you know, look, I'm going to use the work area and move the work area down so it just only plays that area in which I have stuff. I'm going to call it simple camera move, okay? Something like that. And say, okay, all right, so here I am. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out my text. And if I use my text tool, I'll say the word rack, and let me change that to, to white. And I want it pretty big. Now I'm going to put it in the middle. So we'll start here, or maybe a little bit on the left, okay? And maybe down a little bit. Now see where the access point is? Even though I'm not going to rotate it or anything, I just generally like to go to layer. Well, actually, let me wait till I do 3D here. So rack, and then I'm going to click my selection tool, right? And then grab my text tool. Notice I kind of deactivated it. And I'm going to say focus, if I can see it here. Yep, and it's just 2D right now. And then I can move these aside. So they're off the area that I see, but they are there. And then I'm going to grab my text tool and say here. Okay, so rack focus here, I think I'm going to do. Now notice again, each of these access points is off. But what I'm going to do is down here, because we're working 3D, if you click on this little toggle switches, see how you get the different things? Here's parenting and here's track matting. And then here's all these little icons right here. This little three circles, that's motion blurring. There's motion blurring for the layers. And this one right here, this little cube, if you mouse over it, it says 3D layer. I'm going to click on each one and make each one of these text layers a 3D layer. Okay? Now also what I'm going to do is click on each one and go layer, transform, center anchor point. Okay? And again, generally, and even though I can't see this, it's just off screen here, but here's the access point, and I want it typically in the middle, just in case. I'm going to go layer, transform, center anchor point in content. Okay? And then the last one is the word rack, and I'm going to go layer, transform, center anchor point. All right, so now they all have center anchor points, and notice that in 3D, let me move this just a second. I'm going to grab my hand here. Notice they have this little clock. It has a green hand, a red hand, and if you can see that, a blue hand. Okay, so if I grab my selection tool and I mouse over these, the green hand is the Y, and that's up and down. The X, and this is in 3D space, the X is horizontal, left to right. And the Z, which we're going to use a lot, is basically forward, backward. Okay? And that's the 3D. All right, so we have that. Now, one of the things we can do is, as I said, I have two views. Generally, you start out with one view here. Sorry. You start out with one view, right? And you're working in 2D space. This is generally how you want to go. But because we're working in 3D, I'm going to go right here, see where it says active camera and one view. I'm going to choose two views. And this second view, this is active camera. This is what you're seeing straight on. And then this is what you're seeing overhead. Now, if I zoom in here, I have all my text is in the same physical location in 3D. Okay, even though this is below and even though this is above, they're in the same position of the Z. So I'm going to play with the Z a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and see how I mouse over and I'm looking for a Z and see how the Z is sort of ahead of the watch. So here's the Y, here's the X if you can see that, and here is the Z. If you get the Z, I can move this text back, and that's the rack. So I'm gonna scroll out a little bit, and you can go out. You should be able to chew this, or if you have a wheel, you can use the wheel. But I'm gonna keep going back here, like that, and then I'm gonna go here, and this is my here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the Y of here and go even further back, even further back than where the other one was. And I'm always going to grab my Z. And all that's going to do is move it straight back. Okay? Now this one, you see how it's up? I mean, it's down a little bit. So I'm going to grab the Y and move it up. Let's try like that. And again, the here, I'm going to keep moving back on the Z here. Okay? Now let's grab the first one. The first one is the focus. So I'm going to move the Y and move it down, kind of like that. And then I'm going to move the Z up. Now, don't worry about it. And then I'll move it down a little bit. Oop, too much. Right, something like that. Okay, so in 3D space, I have focus, I have the rack, and then all the way back here, I have the here. Okay, now that's not doing anything now. But what we're going to do is, these are all 3D layers now because I clicked this little cube. I'm going to add a layer called a camera. And I'm going to say layer new camera. And this little box is going to pop up. We're going to choose one node because it's easier. Okay, just take my word for it. We're going to choose preset of 50 millimeter. 50 millimeter. It might already be there anyways. You can just keep it called camera. You want to make sure that enable depth of field is on and lock zoom is on. Generally they are. Don't even worry about any of this stuff. Okay? Just keep it the way it is and say okay. And when you do that, you see this triangle? This little beginning of the triangle, the top of the triangle here that I'm mousing over, that's the camera. And I can grab, so it even says camera. And notice it's not 3D because 3D layers react to the camera, but the camera is not on a 3D layer. But it can only be 3D. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this top-down view. Just a second here. Let me grab my hand. And I'm going to grab my selection tool again. And again, this little area here, here's this triangle. And see this line right here? That's what's in focus. Now we don't have any depth of field yet, but we will. But wherever that line is, that's what's in focus. And the further away something is from that line, in a couple of minutes here, it'll be out of focus. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the Z of my camera. And again, it's a little, you'll get used to this. It's a little above. You'll notice you'll have to go forward a little bit to get the Z. And I'm going to move it straight back. And I'm going to start right there. See how this line is going to be right with the word focus? And that's going to be in focus. So I'm going to move my Z again and move it right there. And then I'm also going to grab the word focus and move the X a little bit. So it's in the middle. Okay. Now, we don't have any, we have some layers, but we don't have any, like everything's in focus. Like how, and that's cool. Like let me show you. Give me just a second here. So I can run this camera through this space, but everything's in focus. And that's kind of a cool effect. Okay? But it's not what I want. So I'm going to start it, again, I'm going to start it about right there. And then what I'm going to do is, there's some different things we can do with the camera. Here's the camera layer here. And I like to generally have the camera on the top layer. So if it's down here, you can grab layers and move them up or down. Okay? I just generally like to do that. And I always name what my thing is on my layer. All right. So on the camera 1, I'm going to click this little arrow right here. And don't worry about transform, but I'm going to say camera options. And I'm going to go down to camera options. And we always want to make sure, and generally this is already on, that depth of field is on. Depth of field is on. And then we're going to mess around with the aperture. So the aperture is the size of the hole that's letting light in. And we're going to mess around with the aperture, and that will change our focal distance. Okay? So when I raise the aperture, right now it's started like to 25. See how things behind it are going out of focus? Okay? So I made my aperture 1253.3. And it started out at 25. Okay. Now what that means is, let me show you. Let me grab it here on the Z. See how things are now going to be in focus and out of focus? Aha. Yes, just that quick. All right, so I'm going to start right here. And again, it's this line right here where here's the word focus. And it's almost there. Like, see how it's out of focus because this line is away from where focus is right here. So I'm going to start so it's back right on that line. Like that. That's pretty good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm all set. I can actually close this little camera options arrow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the camera and press P for position. And we're going to set some keyframes. Okay. And again, position is going to be not only X and Y, but Z. And really, Z is the only one we're going to deal with, pretty much. Now, later on, we're going to deal with X, Y, and Z. But right now, I'm just going to show you the basics of what the camera does. So I'm going to set the stopwatch next to the word position. Okay? And it's set a little keyframe right here. And I like to start so we're not doing anything yet. So I'm going to go up just a little bit. And I want the same keyframe. So I'm going to go right here at the end of this layer and click this little blank diamond right here. And all it did was it set another keyframe. I didn't change any positions, but it's a way to keep things from moving for a little bit on the timeline. So, but now I want it to move. So I'm going to go up somewhere on the timeline here. And I can change this later on. Now, I'm going to, because I set a keyframe on position, I'm going to grab the Z of my camera and go all the way to here. I think that should be pretty good right there. Okay. So let me zoom out a little bit here. So, in fact, I'm not close enough here. Give me a second. And again, here's my complete focal. If this line of the camera was up to this line, it'd be perfectly focused. So let me move it up here. I'm going to grab my selection tool. Boom, right there. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my work area back and then save it. And hopefully you've already saved this into your Google Drive. But I'm going to press space bar. Okay. Just a basic idea of what the camera can do. All right, in 3D space. Super easy. Okay. Now, what I thought would be kind of fun is when the camera is moving, and let's say it's just past rack, and before here is kind of in focus. I'm going to add another layer, another text. So I'm going to go grab my text tool, and I'm going to type out, let's see if it typed out. It's hard to see here. Okay. Let me size this up here. And I'll make it remove uck. So let me do that again here. So again, I'm going to grab my text tool. Come on. Man. Okay, I messed up that. One more time here. Okay, so I got, oh. There we go, rack. All right. I deleted some things accidentally, so let me put my camera back here. And click away everything. Let's see if I can get this right here. Oh, no wonder. Okay. There we go. I'll move this up so you can see it. It's oov. Okay, so I'm going to keep that. But notice the access point is not in the middle, and it's not a 3D layer, so I'm going to make it a 3D layer. I'm also going to move it down below the camera, and I made it a 3D layer, as I said. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to position it before. I'm trying to think here. Oh. Come on, there we go. So here, this is the word here, and this is the word oov, should be move, but okay. And I'm going to, let me zoom in a little bit more here. So I'm going to have it so it starts off the screen. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set some keyframes of oov. Now I'm going to look at where my camera is here. So let me try right here. So I'm going to put it here, and I press the P on the oov or the move, and I'm going to set a position, and I'm going to move the camera a little bit, and I'm going to move the X, which is the first value. So I can actually, the easiest thing to do is find the X on here and move it across, and then maybe move it up a little bit here. And so something like this, okay? And let me see. Okay, so I'm going to move this down here. Oh, sorry. I guess that doesn't matter. I'm going to grab the keyframes because they're in the wrong place and move them down. So see when it's coming across? I want it to be in focus. See? So something like that. Okay. All right. And all I did was I found where the oov was on 3D. I created a couple keyframes to move it across the screen on the X value. And then I positioned it when the camera, and remember, this line on the camera is when things are in focus. So my camera's in focus as my move comes across. Okay? Like that. And all I did was grab the keyframes and then moved it to where the camera was positioned. All right, so let me save it. And then again, let me play it for you. You know, just something to try. But that's a simple camera. All right, go ahead and see if you can do that. You can use any words you want, but just kind of give me the same flavor of it, the same idea of it. And remember, for the camera to work, the camera's not in 3D because it's always 3D, but your layers are. Yep. Excuse me, you have to make your layers 3D. Okay? So go ahead and make that and go get them.